Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Relationship Wednesday. I got my brother here, Mike Hill. We are in the month of June. We're going to be talking about fathers. And so, I just want to give a shout out to my wife and, First Lady Michelle to talk with the mothers and stuff. And so now we're going to have some conversations. So I got, of course, is my guy. If you've been following us, Mike is a repeat or a normal now. Yeah, so he's going to come in and, as always, give his input and share his thoughts on the topics we're talking about. So this month we're going to be talking about fathers. I thought that'd been good to get fathers that's from different seasons of life. So today, from my side, where he's just getting started in his journey, his kids are young in our journey. My kids are in college, in middle school, about to go to high school. So, we just give different perspectives on that. So my goal is just to really share our life a little bit, and then hopefully through our story, it can encourage you some in your own journey as a father, because understanding that fathers is a great topic, but also is needed in this day, because I just want to say, just jumping right into it, that I've seen, like in sports, those who had the father figure seem to be emotionally stronger than the ones who just grew up with a mother. Not to say they couldn't succeed, and they did. It just seemed like the ones that I watched that had more of the father figure, just the way they processed and managed and dealt with the struggles of the competition. Mm-hmm. It seems like they just handle it different. They process a little different. It just seems like they have a little bit more, stability under them and self-confidence, versus where you see ones that grew up with their mothers being the main voice, where they were still great, but it seemed like they had to work harder at building that self-confidence, because it's just something about that father and that support that just, it can't be replaced. Mm-hmm. And so thank God for our mothers, for those fathers who, situations just in life, just never know anybody's situations, not trying to condemn anybody. It's just an observation that I noticed, that when a father is missing in the home, there's definitely things that you feel or you miss, or if you have a father in the home that may not be present like they should, or and all that kind of stuff. So one thing I'm gonna say is about a father opening up is, with God, the thing about a father is steady. So one thing that Jesus told a story about the prodigal son. And a lot of times when you talk about the prodigal son, we always talk about his journey, him coming back and all that kind of stuff. But if you notice how Jesus described the father in the house, where he was always steady. Like, in other words, the son always knew he could come back home to his father, because he knew he was steady. He knew that he wouldn't change up. So a lot of time we talk about the prodigal son, but not understanding that one of the reasons why the prodigal son knew he could come home was because of the steady father. Yeah. And so, and one thing that I want to be careful how I say this. A father, in the way that God designed it, is he doesn't need fathers to be perfect. He just needs fathers to be steady. So just think of it like this. Fathers in general, meaning the makeup of a man in the fatherhood, it's like a house. The thing about fathers is, we really are not going to be celebrated as much, but we're the infrastructure that holds everything together. So, for example, the wife comes in and puts the paint on the walls, the curtains, the windows, makes it nice, but without the infrastructure, she couldn't do that.
Makes the house the home.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Can you dive into the definition of steady?
Yeah. So we will get to that. So, and when we're talking about steady, we're talking about being consistent, being present. In other words, you try to make sure that no matter what, you built a base in your way where your family know they can depend on you. Mm-hmm. In other words, they know that you may not get it all the time, but at least I know what I'm gonna get. For example, one of the things that they need from a father, especially, and that's one thing we got to get better, as men, it's sometimes we can be too emotionally all over the place. So in other words, our anger runs us, our emotions run us, where I can be upset, but I'm still steady. I can be bothered, but I'm still here. Where a lot of times our emotions get us all over the place, and therefore the child don't even know. Because again, one thing with children, we know that a father may not always do everything perfect because nobody is.
Yeah.
But you build such enough of a base where I know that even if you missed it, I still know that you're steady. I know I can depend on you.
Right.
Because that's really what Father, like for example, when we know God as a heavenly Father, what is the main attribute? Faithfulness, steady. That's what makes him such a good father, is knowing that he's steady. And that's where we're supposed to represent that in the earth. But understand is this, we don't always be successful at that and perfect at that, but that's pretty much what the general definition, I'm just giving you the biblical definition of what God requires of us to be steady, stronghold, all that kind of stuff. So now, with that being said, there's so many challenges in life that we deal with to being that. Because you got different men in different seasons of life, and then navigating fatherhood. Then you got so many fathers. Some people come in fatherhood in so many different times and seasons of their life. Where some people became fathers at early age, just out of high school, when they really wasn't ready. So, because to really give themselves and where they can be present in their kids' lives, sometimes could be the father and the mother are not on up and up, and it creates a strain there. It's so many factors in that. So I'm just giving you the foundation of it. But at the end of the day, is that we got to find a way to work towards being steady. Even though we may not be perfect in that, but we got to at least know what God's definition is. But if we're not there yet, it's no judgment. It's just that we got to understand what it's supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. Then we can talk about life and how we're navigating from that standard. How can we work from that space? Yeah. So. And I'll start with myself, and then I'll give it up to piggyback off of you. So for me, I would say one of the things that I want to, this is my life goal and dream for my kids, is that I don't want them to, I want them to learn the value of money, but I never want them to worry about money. I want them to be able to give them the freedom and the platform to be able to get started in life and do the things they need to do, and to be start off better than I did, but at the same time learn to value things where they can be stronger. Because again, just giving your kids stuff, of course, it's not always beneficial if they don't know how to manage and handle it, even though you want to make sure they have a better life than you did. Mm-hmm. But as a father, one of my definitions of being stable is making sure that that I can give them, be that, so that way no matter what, they know that they don't have to worry about that in that sense of being taken care of. But at the same time, I want you to eventually, especially for my boys, I want them to be able to stand on their own too. I told Asia, I said she can stay with daddy forever. Yep. But she said, no, I'm not. I said, it's fine. We'll see about that. But anyway, I said my mind, but I don't say that out loud. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so how about you? What would you say your definition of what's your heartbeat in being like? What's your standard of being there for your kids?
Yeah. So first on the Stay With You Forever, I'm teaching my daughter.
Are you relate to that? What I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't want her to date ever, right?
Right.
So I teach her that we got this handshake: 2 taps, burp and blow. So we burp and we blow it out. Mm-hmm. And Alicia's like, that's not ladylike. I'm like, yeah, we scare away all the boys with burping and blowing in their face. So that, young fathers, teach your daughters little nasty things that boys won't like, and then maybe boys will never like them. So there's that. I think it's like I battle between, because at first I started out where I was like, I ain't gonna beat my kids, you know what I'm saying? Like, slavery taught us to whoop our kids when they did wrong and yell and control. I'm like, no, I ain't gonna do that. Mm-hmm. And then probably like a month in, I was like, that
went out the window.
I was like, that ain't working. Like, because I kept hearing spare the rod, spoil the child. Like, yeah, but that's the old way of doing things. And look how we turned out. And I didn't turn out bad, but I'm just saying, like, we've done it for so long when you go extension cord switches, whatever it was. Like our community has been whooped for doing wrong things, right? But I think the heart behind it was right, because there are consequences to your actions. So what I've learned is to discipline, but not discipline from a state of anger. Discipline from a state of, these are the consequences to your actions, and then afterwards we can talk about it. But what my daughter's getting it, right? Because I might pop her for doing something she shouldn't do, right? And then we'll talk later, but you popped me, and then she gives me the daughter look, and I'm like, I really do apologize. I don't want to do it, but I say my word is my word. And I have to get her to understand when I say something, just like God, like my word is my word, like you was talking about today. If victory is yours, then don't worry about what's happening in between. Just focus on what I said. And so when I say I have to pop you if you do X, Y, and Z, and she does X, I'm like, well, here comes the pop. I can't not do it, because then you won't believe me. So discipline from a state of not being angry, but being stern in what I say, so you can understand, like, once daddy says something, he means it, right? Now, my son, on the other hand, he doesn't care. And this is the crazy, because he's 2, he doesn't care, and he hits me back. And I'm like, bro, you're not you're not going to hit me back. And this is what we talk about when and this is no knock to women, because I have people in my life who have raised boys to be men, single moms, and even my mother, to an extent. Like, my father was in Japan for I don't even remember, 4 or 5 years. And she raised us well on her own, doing the mom and dad thing. But there's only so much a woman can teach a young boy how to be a man.
Right.
And I could see, because my wife is so, she's very nice, and she's very loving, and she's just like my mother. And if I wasn't there, my son would beat my wife. Like when he's upset, he swings and he hits hard. And I'm like, boo, you have to hit him back. If you don't hit him back, he's going to think it's okay. And he still fights back. But I can see where, if the father isn't present, and even when I coached at Largo with some of my kids, it's like there was no dad. It was just mom or grandparents, and they had no structure, and they didn't listen to men in their life, because there was never a man to be present that I had to honor or respect. So when coach said, you ain't my daddy, and now I got these issues with my father ain't take care of me, what makes you think that I got to listen to you, right? And so now I got this rebellious spirit. And it's the craziest thing when a young boy doesn't have a father in his life, and he's able to see other children with fathers in their life. And now you have this thing, Will Smith episode, what's wrong with me? Like, why he don't want me? And then now we get to a place where let me get in the community, because like attracts like, with people who think how I think, and we can raise each other. And this is how the gangs start, right? Because my daddy ain't here, your daddy ain't here. All right, cool. We men on our own. We take care of each other. And somehow, some way, the community, it puts us, or not just us, but people in a situation where we got to be men before our time. You know what I'm saying? And so my thing with being a young father is, let me allow you to, one, not be the second coming of me, because I'm having a hard time with that.
I get you. And
right?
So I gotta say, so what you're saying, that's why I always talk about, or you opening up a whole new can of worms where we talk about, I call it the father wound. And where, in defining what the father wound is, it's where, on 2 cases, where the father was absent, or the father was there but still absent, emotionally, as well as, he was abusive. Basically, he was still absent. So, it creates a father wound where you're still not being that covering. Because when the thing about father, we supposed to be coverings, not lids.
All right, go there. What you mean by that?
Lids is where I control you, and I do things to hold you back, and I do things to stifle your development. Where a covering is, yes, I challenge you, but I protect you, and I undergird you, and I'm pouring into you to make you stronger for the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where, but that father wound, it's it creates a perspective by where now how I see the world and see relationships, and where I see leadership. Because here's the problem with that, and that's it. And that's the whole thing about the fatherhood, right? Because your father and mother are like your first line of leadership. Like that's your first perspective of leadership and covering and all that.
Right.
And when that's not there, by nature of you not being here, I have to adapt. And so I got to create philosophies to adapt to y'all not being here. And when I got to do that, now it creates this space by where how I'm going to see leadership in the world. And then now the problem with that is, the danger it is that we need mentors and coaches to get better.
Yeah.
But because my first leadership hurt me, I can't totally go in trusting the other person, which means that it's the enemy's way of saying, now I'm going to stifle my own development because I can't trust any future leader, truly trust them, because the first one was supposed to be there and it wasn't.
Never was. So I hear this a lot when, people talk about, as a man, we carry so much. And I would like to say, like, real men who take care of their responsibilities, who are there, are accountable, who want more for their families. It's like how to navigate this feeling of it's all on me, because I even deal with this, right? Like, and at times I can feel myself not necessarily in the emotional state of like reacting and not responding. But, when life starts to do what it does, it's like, well, I don't have many people to talk to, which is why I call you. Right. Like that call I had the other day had nothing to do with nothing. I just needed to get it off my chest.
Right.
But in a space where I'm the person where I'm more likely than not pouring into other people, like, can you talk to the men who don't ever get it out and get it off their chest, and then they find themselves kind of lashing out within the household? Because that happens a lot, where I know what's required of me, and I know that I don't want the same for my family that I've had, or the generations behind me or before me had. So how do I deal with the emotions of control, like becoming more or the better version of myself, and at the same time being present, with my family, with my wife, with my children? Because I do a lot. Like, I'm up at 3, I'm working out, I'm building a business. I got the 9 to 5, I'm still working. I'm training people, I'm pouring into the community. Like, how do we balance that? So sometimes it just feels like it's overwhelming. And then if you have no one to talk to, these emotions bottle up. Working out so much can only get it out. I started the combat fight, and that can only do so much. But it's like when you have so much on your plate and you're striving for, that next level in life, and you don't have anybody to bounce these feelings off of, you can sometimes let it spew out into the people you love. And I guess I'm saying it because in the past month, that's kind of where I've been. And my wife was like, I don't know what you need to do. Like, you need to go to the gym, because I wasn't able to go to the gym for a couple of weeks. Because you need to get it out. But, like, how do we navigate that space as, like, leaders, fathers, husbands that just want more for the family and, kind of in that space of breaking through to the other side? Make sense?
Yeah, so 2 things. Like I say in the moment, I would say that when we know there's a space for that, because really you got to, I feel like we got to, in that way, decide to create you create a focus group in the sense of people of who are pretty much deal with the same challenges.
Accountability.
Yeah, and I don't even want to call it accountability. I really want to call it more of a of an encouragement group where you're able to. Who does the chosen talk to? Meaning that when Mary was pregnant by God, she couldn't go talk to anybody.
Right.
But the only person she could go talk to was Elizabeth.
That's tough.
Who, who got supernaturally pregnant, with the whole her situation, but she couldn't talk to nobody.
Right.
And so, but that's the whole thing, was who does the chosen talk to? Like, who do the people, where now I'm in a
See
situation
that
where
in my next video.
yeah, where and I get what you're saying because like me as a pastor, there are fights I deal with that nobody in my sphere really deal with, and which is okay. But
Yeah.
I'm saying that's why sometimes you got to try to, and it's hard sometimes to your point to find other people because again because the thing you're looking for is relatability. So meaning that it's not that we got to fix each other's problems. It's just that we understand one another, and I feel like what I'm feeling, I'm not by myself
Yeah.
in this thing. So that's the reason why it's good to have that camaraderie and team and all of that. But that comes back to like that brotherhood in different ways. But the thing is that and that leads to a whole different thing, right? And so basically what you digging into it's like if I'm going to be strong for my family, I got to have resources to make sure that I got things to help me be strong.
Yeah.
So I can be strong for my family.
Because the crazy thing is, I wasn't even like nothing like traumatic. Like nothing happened to the point where I was like, oh, okay, cool, that's what I need to do. It was just the release of it. Because I wasn't able to talk to nobody that I felt like could relate. So I just was like bottling it up, and then very irritable, and just walking around like, what's happening? Because I'm not in that space a lot, but just being able to get it off my chest afterwards, I was like, okay, now we can move forward. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's important.
That's who Dr. Paul was for me. He was the one that oversaw Redemption Fellowship.
Yeah.
And I would call him up, and I'm expecting him to fix all my problems. And I, and I said, man, I feel like, how do you stay positive when everybody calling you? I just asked him that one time, venting about that. He just laughed. He said, it's God's grace. Anyway, I said, I told him, I don't want to be called always being, whatever. But to your point, I've experienced what you're talking about.
Yeah.
As far as when you have somebody who's been there, understand, who's, been through those battles, and where it's going to be fine, it's going to be okay, and all that kind of stuff.
You know what's crazy? I got sick, and this is to your children seeing everything that you do, right? And that's why I want to be able to show up the right way. So as they learn how to navigate through life, they can see, oh, this is how daddy does it. So let me do it, somewhat this way, but in my own, right? But so I had like a fever. This was probably like last year. Had some type of fever. And I was pissed off. Like, I'm always mad when I can't wake up at 3 o'clock. And I was like, at first I was good. And I was like, all right, let's just deal with it. And then after like 3 days, I was like, all right, man, this is ridiculous. 4 days, 5 days. And I guess my daughter could see like how frustrated I was, right? So she ends up getting sick. And
wow.
Like, she was mad at everybody. Like, she was just yelling, and I was like, what is going on? And then I was she didn't want me to sing to her at night. That broke my heart, because I sang to her before she go to sleep. I said, you ready for me to sing? No. And I'm like, bro, and she's 2 at the time.
You said,
and so
no.
She was just like mad. And then I got in my face. I said, look, you don't got to treat me like this. I was like, I care about you. I want to make sure you're okay. And then I said, so whatever it is, and I'm trying to tell her, like, stop treating me like this because I love you. And I walk out, she said, but Dada. And I was like, yeah. She said, but I don't feel really well. I said, yeah, I know, but you don't have to be angry because you don't feel well. And then when I left out, I was like, oh, like, I've been angry because I don't feel well. And so the point of the story is they don't do what you say, they do what you do. So being able to govern those emotions, and also like how I communicate with my wife, I want them to see what a successful marriage looks like what love in the household looks like. So being able to say, all right, cool, let me work on me so I can show up the right way in front of my babies.
Yeah, so I'm gonna finish this point. We'll hit the pause to pick it up next week. So I would say that, and what you're saying and what we're talking about, like building that stability, is that we as men, and I'm not saying we that's a whole nother topic. Like, I feel like Mike is giving us like hours of content to unpack that we would probably have to come back another time to really work through, because We can't accomplish this in 20 minutes. I wish we could. But the thing is that, and I heard my pastor even say this before, that great men are great self-managers. So in other words, the better you manage yourself, your emotions and your habits and your attitudes and your behavior, the better you'll be able to manage your household and your family and other things around you.
Stuff, yeah.
And so, and there are keys to being good self. Like, for example, like Mike was talking about, having, it's hard to self-manage when you're tired. But when you're able to have other outlets and certain people where we can, so basically is having a plan to where we can have a good self-management plan where I have this thing that can help keep me stable so I can continue. Because at the same time, it's like when you're working out, you're naturally going to get tired and you got to eat food. It's like you can't keep working out and don't eat. Yeah. Eventually your body's going to break down. Same thing with our minds and mental stability and emotional tanks and stuff. Yeah, we're taking care of your family, doing things that pulls. And if you don't have other ways to build yourself up, it can set yourself up for, and that's why we're actually sharing this in there's so much in that. So my pastor, this is what he talked about one time. One time he was dealing with a lot of pastors who were just getting themselves into sticky situations. And they found out what it was that they were giving out a ministry so much that they didn't have a self-management plan. And because of that, they were emotionally bankrupt, mentally bankrupt, and it created destructive behaviors, not because they were bad people, it's just that they never learned how to manage that emotional tank and their mental tank when they were giving out so much. And so because they were empty, they went to bad places trying to get filled, and they end up, being more destructive than helpful, all because they didn't have a good self-management plan. Because we got to manage ourselves well in order to manage the things responsibility that God has given us.
I know we run out of time, but what's the practical things for people to say, all right, if I need to manage myself, well, how do I do it?
And so I'll say, so stay tuned next week, and we will answer that next time that we come together. All right? God bless y'all. See y'all next week.
Thank you for joining Pastor Wayne Powell Sr. for this edition of Relationship Wednesday. We hope you enjoyed this episode of After I Did. Let's keep the conversation going by leaving your questions and comments in the chat. We also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you are reminded to join us next Wednesday as Pastor Wayne continues this discussion of After I Did.